Today, we're jumping into one of the world's most fascinating and, let's be honest, most difficult rivalries, the one between India and Pakistan. We're going to try and unpack this whole thing by looking at one single, pivotal moment in their shared history.
So, let's get right to it. This is the big question, isn't it? You have two nations born from the exact same piece of land, with centuries of shared culture and history. So why does it feel like they're locked in this constant, never-ending state of conflict? Well, to figure that out, we have to go back. You look at a timeline like this, and yeah, you see the wars. They absolutely define the relationship. But what's really interesting is that it's not just a straight line of fighting. Look at that right column. There were these glimmers of hope, these moments where they actually sat down and worked things out. It proves that peace wasn't impossible, even if it was incredibly rare.
Okay, so to really get to the heart of this rivalry, we need to rewind all the way to the beginning. We're talking about the fundamental ideas that literally created these two countries, and you could say put them on a collision course from day one.
This right here, this is the core of it all. On one side, you had the two-nation theory. The argument was simple. Muslims have a unique culture and religion, so they need their own separate state. But on the other side, you had the one-nation concept, which argued that, no, this whole idea of division is artificial. It's something created by elites and pushed by the British to keep control. You see, these aren't just minor political disagreements. They're two completely opposite ideas of what a nation even is.
So that massive split in ideology, it pretty quickly turned into just deep, baked-in distrust. And that brings us to a really key idea, the mirror image problem. It's this psychological trap where both sides genuinely see themselves as the good guys, peaceful, reasonable, while seeing the other side as having all these evil, hidden plans. This became a huge barrier, poisoning the well for any future talks, because it meant every action, every word, was seen in the worst possible light.
And on top of that, you've got India's own strategic view of the neighborhood. I mean, given its size, India developed what experts call the dominance model. The idea is basically, we're the biggest power here, so we should be in charge of security, and any problems should be sorted out between us and our neighbors, one-on-one, no outsiders. Now, you can imagine how that went over. For Pakistan, this didn't feel like a security guarantee. It felt like India trying to call all the shots.
So you have this powder keg, right? You've got the ideological clash, the psychological distrust, the strategic tensions, all of it just simmering. And then, in 1971, the crisis in what was then East Pakistan provided the spark. It set off a war that would literally redraw the map and force both countries to talk in a way they never had before.
The 1971 war was, well, it was a game changer. India's military intervention was fast and decisive. It led to the creation of a brand new country, Bangladesh. And for Pakistan, this was just a devastating defeat. It completely shattered this long-held idea that they could ever really be an equal to India on the battlefield.
Just look at that number. Over 91,000 people. Soldiers, yes, but also civilians. They all became prisoners of war in India. This wasn't just a statistic, this was a massive human crisis, and it gave India an unbelievable amount of leverage in what was to come next.
I mean, imagine being Pakistan's new leader, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. You're in an impossible spot. You've got to get nearly 100,000 of your people back home. You have to figure out what to do with all the citizens who've been displaced from captured land, and you have to decide if you're even going to acknowledge that Bangladesh is a real country. All of this while negotiating from a place of total weakness.
So it's in this incredibly tense, high-stakes environment that the leaders of India and Pakistan met up in a mountain town called Simla. The big question on everyone's mind was, could they actually build something lasting, a real framework for peace, out of the ashes of this brutal war? And just listen to the official language they used in the agreement. It talks about putting an end to the conflict and confrontation and working towards a friendly and harmonious relationship. Honestly, after everything that had just happened, that kind of language was pretty radical. It was a huge statement of intent.
And this wasn't just talk. They actually laid out a clear step-by-step plan to get back to normal. And what's really telling is that it's not all about armies and borders. It's about rebuilding the simple human connections, getting the mail flowing again, letting people travel, restarting trade, even sharing science and culture. It was a complete blueprint for starting over from scratch.
But you know, signing a piece of paper is the easy part. Making it happen is something else entirely. And almost right away, that deep, simmering distrust started to cause problems, creating cracks in this brand new foundation for peace.
And here was the very first major roadblock.
It all hinged on one word: bilateralism. To India, it meant exactly what their dominance model always said. Problems get solved between us and you, period. No outside help, especially not on Kashmir. But for Pakistan, it was more like, okay, we'll try talking to you first, but if that doesn't work, we still have the right to go to the UN. You can see that mirror image problem perfectly here, can't you? Both sides hearing the same word, but interpreting it in a completely different and suspicious way.
This disagreement led to a real-world stalemate. India basically said, we're not pulling our troops out of the territory we captured from you on the main border until we all agree on the new ceasefire line in Kashmir. They tied the two issues together, and it dragged the whole process out for months, leaving thousands of displaced Pakistanis stuck in limbo, unable to go home.
And then you had the human cost, which was just unbelievably complicated. This wasn't just about the Pakistani prisoners in India. You also had thousands of Bengalis who were stuck in Pakistan and wanted to get to their new home in Bangladesh. And then you had a huge group of non-Bengalis in Bangladesh who had sided with Pakistan and were now desperate to leave. It was just this massive, three-way, logistical, and humanitarian nightmare.
It actually took more than a year after Simla for a breakthrough to happen. It was called the Delhi Accord, and it was crucial because it basically untangled the humanitarian crisis from all the political arguments. This finally allowed that massive three-way exchange of people to begin. It was a huge diplomatic win, for sure, but it also showed just how fragile this whole peace process really was.
So, when all the dust settled, what did this whole thing actually accomplish? What was the real legacy of the Simla Agreement? And maybe, more importantly, what problems did it fail to solve?
Okay, so here's the bottom line. The Simla Agreement was, in many ways, a huge success at managing a crisis. It created the line of control in Kashmir, which is basically the border they still have today. And it got both countries to agree, at least on paper, to talk to each other directly. But here's the catch. It was a framework for managing the conflict, not for resolving it. It put a lid on a pot that was boiling over, but it never turned down the heat. That deep distrust and those core ideological differences, they were all still there, just waiting to fuel the next crisis.
And that kind of leaves us with a big question for today, doesn't it? The Simla Agreement was a product of its time, a post-war plan to stop the bleeding and get back to some kind of normal. So we have to ask, can a blueprint that was designed just to manage a conflict more than 50 years ago really show us how to build actual, lasting peace now? Or does real peace mean you have to finally deal with all the tough stuff that this historic agreement had to leave behind? Lasting peace now? Or does real peace mean you have to finally deal with all the tough stuff that this historic agreement had to leave behind?